Greetings, friends and future friends. Today's video is on the Korg Nautilus. Now, a few weeks ago, I did a video with the Korg PA5X showing you how I use the multiple audio outs of the Korg PA5X and work them into my DAW system. That way you can record 5 tracks of audio all at one time. Well, I do practically the same thing with the Korg Nautilus. I run left and right my melody out, then I run the drums out of 1 and 2, and then the bass guitar or any bass instrument out of 3 and 4. There's a way that the Korg Nautilus will allow you to use the multiple outs. And then you can bring those multiple outs into your DAW system. Now, I'm not a really great keyboard player that can play the bass lines and the melody lines at the same time accurately, but maybe you are. And if you are, then you can actually record your performance all at one time. You'd have the drums, the melody, and the bass line. Then it'd all be on separate tracks, easily for you to mix and master and send out to whatever you need to send it out to, whatever your client is or whatever project you're working on. So let's get in the studio and see how those things work. We now have the Korg Nautilus all started up. And before I can show you the routing of these audio signals, we need to first assign these different sounds to go out to these different audio outs of the Korg Nautilus. So that's what I want to show you first before we even talk about how I route the signals of the Korg Nautilus. So now what we want to do is go to set list, and there's 2 ways of doing that. We can go right here and tap on that. But what I've done is I've taken my quick access keys and I assign key A to be the set list. So I'm going to push down on access key, quick access key A, brings me to set list. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this combination right down here, JB Finger and Classical 80s. I'm going to do that. And now also, if you go back to mode, then we can actually go over here and hit combination. But what I've done, and we'll go back to set list, I've put my quick access keys and I set them up so that B is program and C is combination. So we can go to C, and it brings us up to this combination. And this is that JB Finger Classical 80s SP. And this is the combination we're going to be working with right now. So we now have this combination all ready to go. And I made it pretty simple for this tutorial. And before we get started into how we're going to route the audio outs, I want to show you what we did. And if we go to hit the page button, and it brings us up to MIDI filter and zones, we go over here to keyboard zones, you're going to see that the piano goes from C4 to G9, and the bass guitar goes from C-1 to C4. So that means that there's going to be separate. So if I play the higher registers, we have the keyboards, and if I play the lower registers, we have the bass guitar. And you can see right here where the split is at C4. So anything above it, you can see I'm playing, and below, and we have it set up that way. Now let's get out of this, and let's look at the drums. So we have that all set up. So let's go to ARP and Drum and set up the drums. So what we do is come over here and hit Edit, brings us up to this menu. Then we're going to come over here and tap on this little icon, and it brings us up to here. Now you can see that we have the arpeggio for the keyboards going from C4 to G9, and we have the arpeggio for the bass guitar going from C-1 to C4, and the drums will start from C-1 to C4. And if we back out of this and we turn the drums on, you can see when I play the keyboard part on the higher register, the drums do not play because we didn't trigger it. They're on the lower register. But if I play the bass, and you can see it started the drums. So that's one thing we got set up in this combination to make it work. So what we can have is keyboards on our right hand, bass guitar, and drums in our left hand. So now that we have everything set up on that combination, how we can play our drums and our instruments at different registers on the keyboard, Let's exit this, and let's exit this, and we're back to our combination. Now what we want to do is we want to go in and take these different sounds, because remember, we have piano in track 1, we have the bass guitar in track 2, and then if we go over here, we have 10 is the drums. So go back here to the 1. So then what we want to do, hit page again on the deck of the keyboard, and we're going to go to IFX, and we're going to go to routing. Now, routing 2. Now, what you can see is that the piano on track 1 is going out to IFX1. And if you see, it goes up here, it goes over, and it goes out to IFX1. Matter of fact, there's an exciter enhancer on that piano part. Then if we go to track 2, you can see that it comes up and goes over, and it's coming into IFX3, then looping back and going into IFX4. So its main out is IFX4. Then if we go over here to 10, this is the drum track. We come up here, we can see it's going into IFX2. So then what we want to do is go over to Insert Effects, and now we can see what's happening. The keyboards are coming in IFX1, and we're sending them out, bus out to the left and right. So in other words, anything that's played with that keyboard part, that higher registered keyboard part, will come out of audio left and right. And then down here on IFX2, you can see we have, this is where the drums are coming in. We have 1 and 2. So in other words, what's happening is it's coming into IFX2, coming in here and going straight over and coming out of the audio out 1 and 2. And then down below, we have the bass guitar, which is coming in IFX3, looping around, coming out IFX4, and we have that set to 3/4 or 3/4. So what happens is if you select this, you'll see here's your selections. Left, right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2, 3 and 4, or off. So right now we have that on 3 and 4. And this is where you select the audio outs of your sounds. And in the combinations, it's pretty easy to do this. Again, you go to your routing, you can see right here, you select where am I going to send that signal. Now you can actually send it out directly. If we go over here and we tap on this, you could actually send it directly out. You know, we have all these different outs right here. We can go to 3 and 4. You know, here's all the different outs, 1 and 2, 3 and 4 off. So if you did not want to go through an effects loop like I have in this, you know, I put an effects loop in there. If I didn't want that effects in there, I could have just come over here and said, hey, I want the keyboards to go out the left and right. I could have went over here, tapped on that, and then came down and said, okay, just make that go out left and right. Then that signal, that keyboard would come here and go directly out left and right, or 3 and 4 or whatever selection that I made. If I come over here and say, I want that to go out 1 and 2, now it's going out 1 and 2. But because of the way we have it, we've got IFX1, because what we're doing is we're sending it into an effects loop and then out. So 2 ways you set up your outs of your sounds in your combination. Here on this row right here, you can select that sound to go anywhere you want, the 6 audio outs of the Korg Nautilus. Or if you go into Insert Effects, come down here, and this will give you the same selection. But again, remember, this is going to be left and right after these effects. Whereas if you come back to routing 1 or routing 2 rather, if you come here, it's going to go directly to left and right. But if we go to here, it's going to go through IFX1, your effect, then out left and right. So the first thing we have is the left and right audio outs of the Korg Nautilus go directly into the BBE 882. And you can see when I play the keys, you can see the lights lighting up. The signal goes directly from the Nautilus right into the 882 and then goes to the mixer. So what we have now is the signal coming out of the 882 into my board. And you can see we have NSL and NSR. And that's Nautilus left and Nautilus right. So the left and right comes into the 882, then into the board. Then I have the
sub 1 going to my sound card to record. So if I wanted to record the left and right of the Nautilus, I select sub 1 and sub 2 by pushing these buttons down, and now that signal's coming into the 8A2, into the mixer, and then into the channel 3 and 4 of my sound card. So this mixer right here handles all the sounds of the drums in my studio. So you can see I have snare 1, snare 2, kick drum, toms left, toms right, cymbals left, cymbals right. My whole electric drum set comes into this mixer. And you can see the 5X drums and the KN, which is the Nautilus drum set, comes into this mixer. Then from this mixer, I can process the drums all together. Now, I like doing it this way because then my drums sound more consistent. And the way I process, I'll show you how we process the drums after this mixer. But then that way, all the drums are processed the same way, and it sounds really great. As you've seen, all my drum sounds go into that one mixer, from my 16-piece drum set to the drum sounds of the PA5X and the drum sounds of the Nautilus go into that mixer. Then out of that mixer, they come into this device right here called the TC Electronic Finalizer. Now this finalizer does two things. One, it enhances the drum sounds. It's like a BBE, only a little better because it has more adjustments you can make. It really enhances the drums, and I like the way the drum sounds coming through this thing. Also, it digitizes the sounds. In other words, you can bring an audio signal into this, then it takes and transfers it to a digital signal, and then I can go digitally right out of this TC Electronics Finalizer, right digitally right into my sound card, which gives me a really great drum sound. Now for me, recording individual tracks at one time, I use this sound card here. I can't record multiple tracks all over the place, but for me, the most I'm recording is 5 tracks at a time. So this little sound card works really well for me. It's a 8i6. And then I run all the different sounds into this sound card. In other words, what end up happening is the bass guitar will go right into this sound card. The sub 1 and sub 2 of the mixer, which will bring the left and right sounds of the keyboard, will come into here. And then also the drums will come into this sound card digitally. So then that way we can actually record 5 tracks at one time. So I now want to show you how I route the signals out of the Nautilus. You can see I have 4, 3, 2, 1 right, left outs. And these are the audio outs coming out of the back of the Korg Nautilus. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to route the right and the left. So we come out of the right and left of the Nautilus, go into the left and right ends of the BBE, then out of the BBE into the mixer. Now, once we have the signal into the mixer, it does a couple of things. One, we can monitor that sound and hear what we're playing. And also we can send that signal out of sub 1 and sub 2 into my sound module, which would actually be channels 3 and 4 in the sound module itself. Then once we have that all connected, our sound comes from the Nautilus, the BBE, the mixer, into the sound module. Then we connect the sound module to the Alienware with a USB connection. And you can see your signal, the Nautilus, the BBE, the mixer, then into the sub 1 and sub 2, and then into the sound module. And that's a great way to record anything that's coming out of the right and left audio outs of the Korg Nautilus. Now the next thing we want to talk about is the drums and how we process the drums. So first we come out the drums on channels 1 and 2, audio out of the Nautilus. Then we go into 11 and 12 channels in on the small mixer. Then we come out of left and right outs of the mixer into the TC Electronics Finalizer. Then the finalizer does a couple of things. One, it's processing that signal, making those drums sound really, really good. And it's also sampling and processing that sound and converting it into a digital sound. I really like the converters in the TC Electronics Finalizer. They do a really great job. And processing the drums this way, I get a really good drum sound. And then into the sound module, digitally into the sound module. And this is how we process the drums. Out of the Nautilus 1 and 2, small mixer, TC Electronics Finalizer, into the sound module, and then USB right into our DAW system. And that way we have a great drum sound. Now the next thing is a little different, but it's still working on that same principle. We have the bass signal or any other bass instrument coming out of 3 and 4. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take channel 3 and we're going to bring it back into the mixer. Now we can monitor that. I can send that bass signal anywhere I want in my studio, and I can hear what's playing on that bass track. Then the next thing we're going to do, because 3 and 4 is the same signal, then we take 4 and we bring it out of the Nautilus and run it straight into the sound module. That way the sound module is getting a direct sound. 4 is coming out of the Nautilus and going right into channel 6 in of the sound module. Then of course it goes into the DAW system digitally. But then with this way I can bring the bass into the mixer, monitor it, send it anywhere I want. I know what the bass is going to sound like, and I actually share the same channel of the PA5X and the Nautilus. So to recap, what we do coming out of the Nautilus, left and right, into the BBE, into the mixer, out of sub 1 and sub 2, into the sound module, then USB into the Alienware DAW system. Then the drums come out 1 and 2, into the mixer, out of the mixer into the TC Electronics Finalizer, then digitally out of the Finalizer into our sound module. That way we have a real nice digital sound that's processed and ready to go, and then USB into our DAW system. Then we have 3 and 4 is our bass, and we have 3 coming into the board so we can monitor it, and 4 it's going into the sound card so we can record it. And this is the actual diagram and the routing process that I have to route and record my Nautilus in the DAW system. Okay, we have our DAW system all started up, and the first thing we want to look at is the inputs on these channels. So we know that on the drums up here, we're going to go here and we're going to look, and this is the SPDI F1, which means this is the digital in to that sound card, and that means our drums are going to be recorded on that input of the digital in of our sound card. And we're going to look over here on track 2, which is going to be a mono track, which means that we're going to have the bass coming in, and that's on input 6. That's good. And then down here on track 3, we're going to look at the input, and that input's going to be inputs 3 and 4. So what does that mean? That means that track 1, the drums come out of the Nautilus on channels 1 and 2, go into the mixer, into the finalizer, become digitized, and then come digitally into track 1 as a stereo track. Then over here, track 2 is a mono track where the bass comes out of the Nautilus on tracks 3 and 4, or output channels 3 and 4. Then 3 goes into the mixer so we can monitor it, and then 4 goes directly into the sound card. Then down here in track 3, we have that what happens there is the actual rhythm or accompaniment track. And what that is the left and right of the Nautilus go into the BBE. Then from there, they go into the mixer. Then from there, they go out of sub 1 and sub 2, which then is the inputs of 3 and 4 on the sound card. So we all have everything all taken care of and ready to go. Now, the next thing we want to do is we want to check and see if all the signals are there. So what we're going to do is we're going to play a high note. Let's look over here first. We'll go down here and we'll watch this meter right here and see if we have any movement. Yep, there you go. We have sound coming in on that channel, that track. Now let's try the bass, which should be right here. Great. Now I'm going to trigger the drums with the bass, and then I'm going to let go of the bass, and we'll see if the drums are up there. And we can see that the drums are there. So we now have great separation. We're actually recording. So the drums are coming out of 1 and 2, going into their processing and coming into the sound card here on track 1. The bass is coming out, going into track 2 is a mono signal, and then down here, the stereo track of 3 is actually the, we're going to have the keyboard part. Okay, now I'm going to attempt to play a song, run these cameras and get everything together here. But it's going to be just something simple. I just want to show you how you can record 4 tracks at one time. So we'll get our software going. And there you go. We just recorded 5 tracks at one time. And we'll turn the records off. And let's play it back. Now what we can do is we'll just loop this. And actually we'll go to 20 right here. And we'll do a split, split, split. And then we'll get rid of these tails. And we'll take and create a loop. And see what it sounds like as a loop. Sounds pretty cool. Now let's go in here and then what we can see. So now let's go in here and I want to show you how great it is to separate this stuff. So now if we go into the drums, add some reverb. Sounds cool. Let's go to the bass. Pretty boomy. You know what? Let's throw some modulation on that. Maybe we can put a chorus on that. Let's just try a classic chorus here. Let's try this right here. Let's see what that sounds like. Sounds pretty cool. Now let's go over here and try our keyboard, see what we have here. They have a little bit of reverb on them, so it sounds pretty good. So now let's play our whole mix. Go back to the beginning. So, what have we just accomplished? Is this a great piece of music? No, but it shows you how you can use the Korg Nautilus to produce music. So say you are a very talented keyboard player and you can play with your left hand and your right hand and you can add the drum tracks. You can actually bring that Korg Nautilus sound with all the different keys, your right hand work, your left hand work, into a DAW system like this. And as you can see, and I'll show you again, everything's individual and you hear zero bleed. If we play the drums, you don't hear anything but the drums. We play the bass. And if we play the keyboards, so what we just did is actually record 5 tracks at one time and now be able to separate those tracks. I mean, you could record it this way to scratch in a song to figure out what you're going to do, and then later on add more. Now, what we can do is then, if I wanted to, and let me show you here a little bit, if we wanted to, we could come over here and say duplicate track, and we're going to say no, not an events, but we're going to duplicate the track. And now if I play the piano, hit record, so now what we could do is actually come in and actually play a little bit of a solo. And if we hit record, and you can see, of course, I'll bring up there you go. So now what we just did, and I know it was very sloppy, but now we actually added a sound. And now you see what we can do. And then we keep adding and adding and adding. So in closing, this is how you do it. You can bring in 5 tracks at one time and record, and then you can overdub and create a lot of things using the Nautilus, the Korg Nautilus, with your DAW system.
So I hope this video showed you how you can take advantage of the multiple audio outs that the Korg Nautilus has. It could make producing music a little easier for you. Also, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please subscribe. You'll help us grow the channel. That way we can bring you more cool stuff. So take care, my friends, and thanks for watching.